himself up by the Magi. Luck takes it off the draw. Here's Philly, and put it up, hit the pipe. Came in front of the net shot. They scored! Luck puts it home, and the Magicians have that. Luck is taken away by Thongfen again. Isaiah Thongfen into the offensive zone. Thongfen turns, he scores! Thongfen ends the hockey game for the Magi. It's Morelli from the corner, back up, top of the point. Auburn scores! Top shelf! That was a howitzer! And Riley Auburn put it into the top corner, right where Grandma keeps the cookies. His 22nd goal. The 9th of December, 2020, and it's another edition of Ice Time with yours truly, Nick Hulberg. Glad to be here on the PSP Network as we get geared up and ready for the start of the high school hockey season in North Dakota. Youth hockey returning to play as well. Plenty to talk about today on this program of Ice Time. Minot State men's college hockey, the ACHA. They finished their first part of the season. They are now on Christmas break. The Beavers men's program is. We're going to talk to Minot High's assistant coach today, Mr. Jordan Willert. Will get his thoughts on how will the Magi be here in 2020, a team that is predicted to be 1 or 2 inside of the WDA. I got them pegged as number 1. I believe Minot High is going to be good here this year, and there's some validation to that with what they bring back, and starting with their goaltender, Trey Sortland, all the way up to their top unit. Minot High should be good. We'll talk to their assistant coach, Mr. Jordan Willert, who played for the program, grew up. His dad, John Willert, was the assistant coach for many years, along with Gary Sampson. Jordan knows his stuff. He went on to the USHL and then on to Division I college hockey, playing at the University of Nebraska, Omaha, before returning to Minot to play for the Beavers and MSU, helping them win a national title, their first ever, back in 2013. In the overtime segment, we'll get Jordan's predictions or his outlook around the WDA, some of the players to watch for. We don't put him in the hot seat quite like we did to Mike Peluso last week on the WDA preview show, but we will get Jordan's thoughts on who to look for in the WDA this year and who's going to be good. We're also going to talk to Brandon Schmitt in period number 2 today. And Brandon Schmitt is officiating in the NCHCs down in the pod right now, and we were listening to the North Dakota game yesterday. Funny story for you. We're listening to the North Dakota game yesterday on the radio. We hopped in the vehicle. We're heading to town to get some groceries. And Tim Hennessy, the legend of play-by-play hockey broadcasts in North Dakota, my idol. This guy's fantastic. If you've never heard Tim Hennessy call a hockey game, you are missing out. Tim's one of the best in the business. Along with Jack Michaels, Tim Hennessy right there, my 2 favorite guys of all time. They're fantastic. They do great work. Anyway, so Tim's calling the game, and all of a sudden, he starts talking about how Brandon Schmitt's doing lines in the hockey game and how he was demoted from officiating. And when we turned the game on, we're late to the party. We didn't realize what was actually going on here and what was being said. Fast forward the story to a little bit later on in the evening. We get to the grocery store, and I'm about to check out, and I bump into Mike Schmitt, Brandon Schmitt's dad, who's a supervisor of officials in the NCHC and one of the all-time greats in the WCHA for officiating. Good enough to be one of the supervisors now. And I walk up to him and I said, "Hey, Schmitty, how you doing?" And he looked at me and, "Hulberg, how are you?" And I said, "What's the deal with Brandon?" I was listening to Tim Hennessy call the game today, and it sounded like he got demoted. And Mike didn't know what I was talking about. He looked at me like I was crazy. So we'll get the actual clarification of what Tim Hennessy was talking about last night during the broadcast as North Dakota lost to Denver, their first loss of the season. We'll hear it right from Brandon Schmitt on what that is exactly about. We'll talk to him in period number 2 here tonight. Let's start with MSU and the University of Jamestown, and period number 1 brought to you by our friends at 28 Tastes and Taps. They're now open in the Magic City. Come hungry, you'll leave satisfied, I guarantee it. It's a unique menu that will have your mouth watering. 28 Tastes and Taps. Open in the Magic City, South 16th Street, across from the YMCA. It's 28 Tastes and Taps. Minot State closes out the first portion of their 2021 season, and they do it in style with a 5-1 win over Jamestown, sweeping the weekend over the Jimmies at Wilson Arena last weekend. Great hockey on the weekend for Minot State and Jamestown. It was a home-and-home series. They played on Friday night. Minot State got the win by a score of 3-1 on Friday. That was an empty netter Adam Wawrick picked up his 5th of the year. That's a team high on the empty net goal. 10 points for him on the year. They moved to a 3-1 victory on Friday. They head to Jamestown on Saturday, and a 5-1 victory there that was quite the hockey game. There was 9 power plays called in total for Jamestown. Minot State had 5. Minot State's power play scored 2 power play goals, the difference maker in the hockey game. Barley had a 2-point night. He's up to 13 points now for the Beavers. He leads the way with 4 goals and 9 assists on the year. Wawrick adds another one, 6 goals for him, a team high on the season. He ends up with 12 points at the end of the first half. Powluck, the D-man, and Doyle, the D-man, both with some points. Nick Doyle, Winnipeg, Manitoba, the freshman, up to 10 points on the year. Not a bad campaign for him. Braden Powluck, Manitoba product and a freshman as well. He's up to 4 on the season. More importantly for Minot State, they moved to 8-1 in the first half of the season and 5-1 overall against Jamestown. Is this a fluke against the Jimmies? That's the question. Jamestown's good. According to Wade Reguer, he thinks they're going to be in the top 10 and at the national tournament when the dust settles and a contender for a national title when the dust finally settles in the ACHA in 2021. And I'd have to agree with them. University of Jamestown's a good hockey team. Minot State has just had their numbers so far on the year, but props to Wade Reguer and that crew. Fantastic job in the first half of the year. First of all, even getting games in and playing the games. But in 9 games, picking up 8 wins and 1 loss on the season. Their only loss on the year to Jamestown so far. It's going to be fun to see what happens in the second half of the season. You can find the Shields rewind of the highlights of those 2 hockey games on the PSP network. You can find those full game broadcasts if you'd like to go back and watch as well on the PSP network. That does it for period number 1, brought to you by 28 Tastes and Taps. If you're hungry, they are now open in the Magic City, located on South 16th Street in the Magic City. It's a menu that you'll be impressed with, and the portions are huge. There's also a bar for you adults out there as well. 28 Tastes and Taps brought you period 1. Let's go to period number 2, brought to you by Clean Tech, where we'll talk to Brandon Schmitt, the official head of the NCHC Pod that has roots in North Dakota. He grew up playing hockey in Minot and played for the Minot High Magicians. We'll talk to him when we return. It's ice time. Yours truly here on the PSP Network.
If you told me 10 years ago I'd be a dad, homeowner, and business partner, I wouldn't have believed it. There's lots of reasons I chose First Western.
Hey Lloyd, how are you today?
Locally owned, community invested, convenient, but most of all, whatever I need, wherever I am, I can count on them.
First Western Bank and Trust. You can bank on us.
This period of ice time is brought to you by Tires Plus. Tires Plus has all brands under one roof with the guaranteed lowest prices. And check this out. Their service after the sale with the Tires Plus plan. Find them online at TiresPlusND.com. Time for period number 2 of Ice Time. We now have the privilege to be joined by Brandon Schmitt of the NCHC officiating staff and a former Minot High Magician hockey player in his own right, a gentleman that has climbed the ranks in the officiating world. 9 years now in NCAA Division I hockey, WCHA, NCHC, and of course, the North American League, the USHL, and the Southern Pro League, a part of the U.S. development program at one point as well. Brandon, thanks for some time today. How are things going, man?
Good. Just hanging in there, trying to stay busy, and happy to be back on the ice.
I'm sure you are, and it's such an interesting situation that you're in right now, and living in the pod and being a part of the NCHC and the way that has been structured. Tell us about that right out of the gates here, what it's been like living with that schedule and living kind of in confinement while you still get to do what you love the most, and that's reffing hockey.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I said, it just feels good to be back on the ice. Being down in the pod has been interesting. I mean, we show up day one and it's straight to testing and then quarantine in our rooms by ourselves and trying to stay busy until we get the green light from the medical staff saying that we've been cleared. And then, I mean, it feels like we're almost at a tournament at the end of the year tournament where there's tons of teams here, hockey all day long, other than on game days, you go get tested and have a swab stuck up your nose.
Unbelievable. It was interesting yesterday. We hopped in the car. We were driving into Minot from the PSP offices, and we had Tim Hennessy on with the North Dakota radio call. And we joined right in the midst of his conversation talking about you and saying that all of a sudden you were a linesman, and I was confused. Long story short, I bumped into your mom and dad at Cashwise grocery store last night and said, "What's going on with Brandon? He got demoted, or what's the deal?" Give us the background on that just a little bit. You're filling in the linesman role now. Is that right? In the pod as well?
So yeah, it was kind of a scheduling nightmare for Donnie Adam and my dad and all the other supervisors when the pod schedule and the concept started coming out. And I got a couple ref spots last year going up to Western Michigan. I came up to UND when they played Canisius. And I talked to Donnie Adam quite a bit over the summer, and he basically said, I don't know if you continuing reffing this year is the best thing, just given the shorter. I mean, the college schedule is already short the way it is, and every game means a lot. But now when you're in the pod and the season's going to be even dialed back a lot more with games are even bigger. So I had no intentions of reffing. I viewed myself as probably lining again this year. And then a week before the schedule came out, he asked me if I wanted to ref. I said, yeah, let's do it. And then probably hours after I got off the phone with him, setting up my schedule for reffing, he had a linesman back out from Colorado after he'd already set up the schedule. So he'd asked me if I'd stay here a couple days longer. And once I got the A-OK from my wife, who's at home with a newborn and almost 2-year-old, and decided that I'd do some lining too while I was here.
Great segue into what I wanted to ask you next. Doing some research on the Schmitt name here, and obviously growing up in the Minot Hockey program, Mike Schmitt was a guy that, a legend in the reffing world with what he was able to do. 7 NCAA Frozen Fours, 15 years in the WCHA, 2 national championship games, and the asterisk goes by those stats that's back when there was only one referee on the ice. What was it like growing up with Mike Schmitt as your dad, as one of the best refs that college hockey's ever seen?
I mean, I don't think growing up I realized what caliber of hockey and how big of a name he actually did have in the ref world. But I mean, growing up with him and with Freeman, your Novoleskis, your Andy Cardins, Minot was known for just a breeding ground of top officials. I mean, the per capita amount of people, and seeing them in D1 hockey, pro hockey, it's some tough shoes to fill. But I mean, growing up with my dad, I know after Sundays after church, we were going to the airport to go pick him up, and we were eventually understood that he was bringing home presents. So we would just say hi to him and dig in the back in his briefcase and find what pucks and little toy Zambonis or what. So that was growing up, and it wasn't probably until I got more serious into reffing and went to my first Minn Kota camp, a referee camp in St. Cloud, that I realized what he has done and accomplished in the officiating league or officiating world.
For me, if I would ever land in Tim Hennessy's position, that would be my ultimate dream goal. I would take that job over the Chicago Blackhawks. For you, what does your future hold, and what is climbing that hill like? Is this the top of the mountain for you, or do you continue to strive to go to the NHL, or being one of the top in college hockey, is that good enough in your mind?
So I tried the NHL. The NHL path for an official is basically kind of like a player. You go to the camps, just like those developmental camps that players are going to. You go to back in the day when I did it, the Minn Kota camp that I talked about, then your regional, then your national camp. You get picked up by the officiating program, the ODP, and kind of just basically work. And you have NHL scouts that will come out and watch you. So you're basically the same realm as a player. Once I kind of saw the writing on the wall and that I wasn't willing to wait to be 30, 31 years old and see if the NHL picked me up, once I backed out of the ODP and started my career, that was kind of the end of the NHL dream. But I was doing some college hockey with Greg Shepard in the WCHA then. So that got my foot in the door. And once Donnie Adam picked up an NCHC and he hired me, that's my goal. And my goal was originally to be like a top linesman, and I worked my way up there. And now if Donnie Adam continues to use me as a referee, that'll be my goal, to work to the top ranks and hopefully fill the shoes that my dad had, but some big shoes to fill. So I got time and work my way up there. But that's my end goal with my career and being a weekend warrior now, is just working my way up as the ranks as a referee or linesman.
The article that I found about your dad, Mike Schmitt, it talked about that he ended his 15-year career in the WCHA when you got to high school and wore a jersey for Minot High. That same article talks about your younger brother, Bryce, who went on to lead the state of North Dakota in scoring, played for the Bobcats down in Bismarck, and then a high school career, and then family became important. Now he has transitioned back into the game as a supervisor in the NCHC. What kind of pressure is that like for you, Brandon, having not only officiating is a job that I'd never want to do, so props for you for doing it and doing it well, but not only do you have coaches and players and fans breathing down your neck, but you do have to impress dad each and every time you're on the ice because he's one of the supervisors. What's that like?
I mean, it takes it's interesting. I mean, I grew up with the Derek Shepard, the Brad Shepard, and having their dad, Greg Shepard, being in the top supervisor of officials in a top league back in the day. So I kind of had that to go off of, but I mean, it is nerve wracking, but it's like now that I'm in the referee position and you go to review a goal or review a check from behind, like we had here at the pod, and it's almost a calming factor when you put the headset on and now you're just talking to dad. It's just a conversation that we have on the phone, and it's kind of dive into, you block out everything else going on, just having a conversation on what you see on the ice. But it is a little nerve-wracking. I mean, we don't have the names on the back of the jerseys now, but all the coaches in our league at least know that I'm Mike Schmitt's son. So I better come and perform and not ruin the Schmitt name at least.
Fantastic stuff. Brandon, we appreciate you talking to us today on Ice Time. Proud as can be to know you and grow up with you. And you're doing great stuff inside the pod, the NCHC, and fantastic work. Anything you want to add before we let you get back to getting geared up for more hockey? When's the next scheduled game for you?
I got my final game before I fly out tomorrow at 6 a.m. I got the late game. Who is it? CC and Omaha, I believe. That is correct. I believe you're right. So that'll be my last one. So go to a restaurant that I've been to about 5 times already around the block and just get ready. So, but thanks for having me. I appreciate it. It's great to hear from people back in Minot, and miss everybody back there. And hopefully once this pandemic crap's over, get back and see you all in person.
Absolutely. Thanks for everything you do, man. Thanks for your work on the police force as well. We sure appreciate your service, man.
Of course, man. I appreciate it.
That's Brandon Schmitt, one of the greats in the officiating world. He follows some big footsteps. We appreciate him. When we come back to Ice Time, we're going to talk to Jordan Willert and get his thoughts on the Minot High Magicians hockey season as the Magi get geared up to repeat as the top team in the WDA. It's Ice Time here on the PSP Network.
The 30-inch Galactic Pizza is out of this world. There's nothing like it anywhere else in Minot. Too much to handle? Try one of our famous large specialty pizzas like the Blue Buffalo. Get the best pizza in Minot and play some laser tag at Planet Pizza, South Broadway, Minot.
This period of Ice Time brought to you by Clean Tech. Get COVID-19 deep cleaning services for your home or business with Clean Tech LLC. This proactive deep cleaning service includes disinfecting and sanitizing. Don't forget about CleanTech's 24/7 disaster response and restoration services. Visit them online at cleantechllc.us. CleanTech, coming to the rescue since 1992. We're now joined by one of the former Minot High greats, Mr. Jordan Willert. He's the current assistant coach of Minot High Magicians hockey. After a great career with Minot High, he went on to play in the USHL, on to University of Nebraska, Omaha, and then back to Minot State, where he helped the Beavers capture their first national title. Now, as a coach and in the coaching role, it's Mr. Jordan Willert. Thanks for some time today, Coach. How are things going?
Hey, thanks for having me, Nikki. Things are going good. Just trying to navigate this pandemic and looking forward to next week and finally getting to roll into some hockey games this hockey season.
Well, the countdown is on, and for the Magicians, and not only for the Magicians, but for guys like you and I, and this is where I'd like to start. Yes, we've been Minot High fans. Of course, your dad was the coach with Gary Sampson for many, many years, and you grew up at the rink, a rink rat from the time you were a little kid. Same with me. My parents didn't coach by any means, but I was one of those guys that you could find at the rink. What is it like for you to get back to the hockey rink and after missing it so much during this pandemic and having it be such a part of your life for so long? What is it really like getting back to the rink and knowing that we actually get to play here?
It's actually kind of a funny question. So the night that the governor came on and said that, we were going to lose hockey or lose sports, I guess, here for a while, super defeated. And then, you and I were actually talking the one night, and all of a sudden he comes on and says, we can practice. Like, not going to lie, like I cried, because it's like, this is a big way for me that I've always gotten through winters here in North Dakota, which can be tough and hard on people. And, it's a big deal. And, now I have a 4-year-old at home that's in the Learn to Play program at the Boosters, and, he's learning to play hockey. So that's a whole nother level of it there, but it's awesome. I love going to the rink every day, love being around the kids. And I'm just glad that we're able to get going here. And, hopefully we roll into next week and things are still looking good.
It's exciting, and the schedule is almost like a pro schedule as we move forward here. And we want to break down Minot High Hockey today. We want to talk about your program and your team just a little bit here, Coach. This is a team that last year won the West Region regular season crowd, compiling a record of 13-1 inside of WDA play. Lost in the region semifinals last year to Bismarck High 3-2. Went on to the state tournament, took a 6th place at state after losing to Jamestown 4-3. That was after you guys knocked off Bismarck Century in that thriller shootout at the on the second day of the state high school hockey tournament. Must win to stay alive. And now you come back here in 2020-21, and this is a hockey team that is going to be very stacked up front. They're going to be even more stacked on the back end, and you have an all-state goaltender coming back. From the team last year, you lose Nick Murphy, 31 points. He was the leading point getter. Losing to Jack Plemmel as well, 24 points there. And Peyton Fillion, 18 points for him. You also lose Josh Drady on the back end. Not many seniors in the lineup last year. And now here we are going into 2021 with a hockey team that, in my mind, should win the West Regions. Our favorite to win the West, or to be right there. Century's going to be good as well in my mind. How good, really, in your eyes, is this Minot High program here in 2021?
I mean, it should be a good year for us, Nick. A lot of kids put in a lot of hard work over the summer. The thing that's nice is a lot of these seniors have been with us now for 3 years. We've had them since they were sophomores. You go down the list: Aiden Morelli, Derwin Hauser, Casey Field, Ben Bonebrake, Riley Opperud, Jake Tice, Gabe and Isaiah Thongfei. Like, you just go down the list, and all these kids, they played in some significant hockey games for us. Like, we've talked as a coaching staff. It was important since their sophomore year. We've been back to state. It's just important at the end of the year to be playing meaningful hockey games. And, at the end of the day, you still got to show up to the rink and work hard. There's still Bismarck Century. There's still Bismarck High. There's still Jamestown, Williston, Botno, Dickey, Mandat. Like, there's still it's still West Region hockey. There's still kids on each of those teams that are studs. And, you still got to come and battle every night. But I think this group is it's got a bunch of really good kids on it. They're fun to be around. They show up, they work, they want to learn about hockey, which I love. I love being able to talk hockey with them. And now you're sprinkling a couple kids that have moved up from, the Bantam AA or the Bantam A ranks, like a Ben Svangstu. Colton Schuster's back last year. He played a pretty big role for us down the stretch. And, it's an exciting time right now to be a Minot Magician. And I'm excited to get back to hockey.
Leadership for this group. And there's plenty of guys that I think could probably wear a patch in that locker room right now, Coach. What's the leadership like? And is there guys that you have selected as captains and assistants of this hockey team right now?
Yeah, I mean, as of right now, sitting, we haven't named any. I think we're kind of going to get into it here. Like you said, it's bang, bang, bang next week. Like, we're right into it. But again, when you have that many seniors, like, everybody should be a leader. Like, there's, I know we set up our locker room cleaning list, and we made sure there was a senior in every single group. Cause it's like, guys, like, you've been here, you know what the locker room looks like, you know what it should look like, you know how nice you got things. So that's the nice thing is you sprinkle in some of these young guys. Well, you got a ton of old veteran leadership here that can kind of show them the ropes.
You touch on those guys coming in from the Bantam program, and there's a lot of talk around the rink about Swangstu coming into this year. I know that there's some talk about Bradley on the back end being good as well. Touch on those guys a little bit. What are they missing right now coming into the high school program? Obviously, the body's got to develop a little bit more. You have to get used to that pace of play. Are those guys going to be in the mix and in your top of the lineup by the end of the season, do you think?
Yeah, I mean, there's some good players. Benny Svangsu, he thinks the game really, really well. He's asked some questions, already this season. It's been like, wow, like he's seeing and thinking the game the right way. You got, Bradley and Haven Freeman back there on the back end, really, really solid kids. That Bradley's sure shot up. He's a tall kid, tall, lanky, thinks the game well also. I think a little bit for them, it's just going to be the pace of the game. You're also, like I said, you're playing all those teams I named earlier that are going to have 17 and 18-year-old, quote unquote men on their team where, these are sophomores that just got done playing Bantams. The physicality is going to pick up, the speed's going to pick up, the pace of play picks up. Being able to think the game gets harder because there's less time to do that. And, hopefully they're able to make an adjustment. But I think, our old crew here, with some of the older guys, will make it a little bit easier of a transition for them.
I know it's high school hockey, and I know that we're not, it's not like we're talking pros here, but I like to ask you these questions and pick your brain because there's a lot of people that are asking the same questions and wondering the same thing. And that's why we're here. That's why we're doing this. In your mind, Aiden Morelli, a player that comes into this year after last year scoring 26 points. He had only 11 goals and 15 assists. And the reason that I say only is that Morelli, in my mind, is a kid that is on the brink of possibly being somebody to watch for beyond Minot High Hockey. He's got potential there. Is it a reality that we might see Aiden Morelli put up 20 to 30 goals this year for Minot High Hockey?
Yeah, I mean, I think anything's possible. That kid works extremely hard, Nick. That kid has put in so much time. He cares so much. I know last year he had a little bit of a rough patch. I think he scored either one or two early and then didn't score for a while. It was kind of the running joke in the locker room, like, is Morelli going to score again? And you say running joke because like we expect him to score. He expects to score. He was still contributing. He works so hard. He does all the right things. He back checks. He's hard on pucks, stick on puck, through body, wins faceoffs, kills penalties, plays a pivotal spot on a power play. Like, he does everything right. And, I think the sky's the limit for him. Again, the kid worked extremely hard again this offseason. And, he's ready to go. And he's just a kid you like being around. He's a contagious kid, as are most of those Morellis. You just like being around them. Good families, good kids. And, you hope for success for kids like that.
When you talk about leading point getters from last year coming back, Jaden Luck's the one that will have the target on his back. 31 points last year as a sophomore. He had 16 goals and 15 assists. And Luck's the guy that I said in the play-by-play last year that this might be the new poster boy for Minot High Hockey, the billboard player, if you will. Is Luck the real deal? And what do you expect out of Jaden Luck here this year?
Yeah, I think, especially offensively, Jaden's there. He scored some huge goals for us last year. Him and Murphy kind of tandem down the stretch and played really well off of each other. I think for him, it's just about shoring up the two-way game, making sure that he takes care of defensive zone before he exits with puck. The kid is a little water bug and can just absolutely fly out there. So he so much wants to get going forward. Well, sometimes it's, let's just slow down and take care of our zone here. But, again, I think the sky's the limit for him. It's hopefully we can find somebody that meshes well with them and they can work together on a line, kind of like we found last year with Murphy. If we're able to do that, I think he's in line to have a kind of another breakout year. I mean, last year was a breakout year as a freshman for us. He played sparingly, minutes for varsity. And then last year obviously went on and tied Murphy for leading point getter on the team. I see him being right there again. Again, just shoring up that two-way game, making sure he takes care of the D zone. And then, as he gets into the offensive zone, we kind of give him full reins and let him do what he wants. X-factor
player on the front end for me could very easily be Casey Field. As a junior last year, he led the team in scoring for the first, 5 or 6 games until a wrist injury ended up having him on the shelf. He only played 11 games on the season. He ended up with 7 points in 11 games. When you look at the roster from last year, as many coaches do and broadcasters will do, they'll say, well, how were they last year? Well, you look at Casey Field, and he's way down the list here. Is he a guy that could possibly shock some people in the WDA this year and the state of North Dakota?
Yeah, I mean, it was unfortunate for him. It was actually kind of a weird hit against Bismarck High right in front of our bench, just bit his wrist the wrong way. And, it was super unfortunate. I think at the time he might have had like 5 points in 3 games or something like that. Like he was off to a good start on his junior campaign. But you know what? He showed up to the gym since we've been on our pandemic break here. And he's worked extremely hard. He's a go-getter. He loves hockey, wants to be at the rink. Sometimes he can be a little bit hard on himself, which is, kind of devil's advocate. It kind of burns both ends of the spectrum. You like that as a coach, but sometimes you also got to let things go. I think he could have a huge season for us. Kind of say that we almost expect him to have a huge season for us, but again, as it is with most of these kids, just, make sure that we take care of our D zone before we exit to go play offense. And, that's just something that we're working on with all of them. But Casey's in line, I think, here had a really good summer, really good kid. Love being around him. I could see him having a breakout year as a senior.
Should be a fun group to watch up front. And there's plenty. I mean, you go down the list, you can name all of them. Thogfett, you already mentioned the Schuster kid who was only a freshman last year. The new guys coming in. There's plenty of players here. On the back end, Riley Oprud and Ben Bonebrake. You've got Tice back there with Thogfett. First question, and there's more, by the way. The first question for you, how does Bonebrake look, and how does Steady Eddie stay-at-home Jake Tice look on the back end this year, coming in after pretty good football campaign for the Magi, and Bonebrake, of course, being one of the bigger defensemen in the entire WDA?
Yeah, I mean, it probably sounded like a broken record here, but like Benny had a really good summer in the weight room. Put on some pounds, kind of built into that big frame that he has. He looks good. And then you got Jake Tice, like you said. I think he was all WDA mentioned for football. He had a really good football season for Coach Chauncey Hendershot. It was fun to watch. And then obviously you got Riley, who had a big year for us, and Gabe. Like we're looking strong there. And then you mix in a Landon Hallseth back there, and you mix in a couple of those sophomores that have moved up from the Bantam AA, and the back end's looking all right. Again, we want to make sure, and we're working with these kids to defend. If we can get out of our zone, we got enough going forward that we think we can be dangerous in the offensive zone, but got to take care of that. Got to take care of that D zone.
Finally, last but not least for the Magi is the goaltending conversation. Trey Sortland last year had 7 shutouts on the year for Minot High, if that number is correct. There's 7 goose eggs on the board. He might have split a couple of those with Noah Conklin, by the way, but 7 is the number of shutouts that Minot High hockey had last year. That's fantastic. Sortland ended the year with a .266 goals against average and an 88% save percentage. He carried the workload in 23 games. He was selected to the All-State team, selected to the All-WDA conference team. Trey Sortland comes into the year as probably the most talked about goaltender in the WDA. He's going to give you guys a shot at winning another state championship, in my mind, here in 2020. What is his Achilles heel? What does he need to work on? What is your concern with Trey moving forward? Obviously, there's a lot of bright spots with this kid.
Yeah, I mean, again, a broken record, but like the senior group, these kids, they're just such good kids. Like Trey's a great kid to be around. I think, and Trey would agree with me here, we've talked about it. I think one thing he needs to work on is just settling himself. He gets into some big games, whether it be, Bismarck High in the WDA last year, or, even when we've gotten to state, I think he just gets so worked up that he hypes himself up. He gets so nervous that, it kind of wears on him. He's been through it now. Like we've talked about Trey, you've been through it now, buddy. Like just relax and go play hockey, because when he does that, you're pretty darn good. And then, it's kind of unfortunate this year that we're losing some of our East Region games and some of our non-conference, because a kid like Noah Conklin is a very capable tender also. He played very well for us last year at times. And, we're going to have to find him some games this year too on the varsity side of things. But it's a good problem to have as a coach, that you have 2 capable goaltenders, especially in a year like this when there's a pandemic. You have no idea if kids are going to get sick, if kids are going to, not be able to come, or whatever it is, whether they're on quarantine or they're. So it's nice that we, have that commodity. But yeah, like you said, both those kids, I think, give us a chance to win every time they play.
Final question in regards to Minot High Magicians hockey. On the radio broadcast, if you've ever listened to the calls, it's been an inside joke with me on the play-by-play for the last, I don't know, it's got to be 7. This is 10 years for me, by the way, of the call for the Magi. Yeah.
Wow.
But for the last, I think it's been the last 7 years, maybe 5, 6. I don't know how long it's been. But I always joke about you, Mr. Grubb, and Mr. Bennett being the most sharp-dressed coaching staff in the league. What are you guys wearing this year? Are you guys going to be looking good like you have for the last few?
Say we stumbled into some CCM jet black jackets with a real sweet Vegas gold and maroon logo on the left crest. Boys are coming in hot from the bench. We got matching Minot High coaches masks. We're gonna be ready to go. We're gonna be ready to go, Nick.
I have a feeling that's Grubb that comes up with that. Is that Grubb that's got the sense of fashion? It's you. It is you.
I pick out the coats. That is one of my assistant coaching duties.
Mr. Bennett just sits back there and shakes his head, just says, let's just go play the damn game probably.
He just wants to know why I make him spend $100 on a coat every 2 years.
That's right. When we come back, we're going to talk to Jordan Willert about the WDA and the outlook for the West region in our overtime segment. We'll do that next. It's Ice Time with yours truly, Nick Hulberg.
Life is all about moments. Big moments. Small moments. And those moments you can't put into words. It's how we at First International Bank and Trust live first and have been for more than 110 years. One customer, one family, one moment at a time. First International Bank and Trust. Live first.
This period of Ice Time is brought to you by Tires Plus. Tires Plus has all brands under one roof with the guaranteed lowest prices. And check this out. Their service after the sale with the Tires Plus plan. Find them online at TiresPlusND.com. Time for the overtime segment of Ice Time with yours truly, Nick Hulberg. We're joined today by one of the former greats for Minot High Magicians hockey and the current assistant coach of the Magi. It's Mr. Jordan Willert. Jordan, thanks for your time today as we preview Minot High's hockey team. Man, it really is exciting looking at what the Magi are going to be able to do here in 2020, 2021. The WDA, however, though, is going to be very good. This isn't going to be a cakewalk by any means for any of those top teams in the West. And after talking to Mike Peluso last week on our WDA preview show, does anybody even know who the top teams in the West region will be this year? Before we kind of break down and go through some of these teams, your overall thought on the Wild Wild West here in 2020, 2021?
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting as being somebody that's from the West to see these top end kids coming through. You know, you got an Ian Amsbaugh, the Thompson kid, and Nolan Nenow from Jamestown. You got a Steckler from Bismarck High. Obviously, you got kids from Bismarck Century. Troy Olsen. The coaches that we got over here are top notch. Troy Olsen, Wes Carr, Dallas. Out in Williston, you got Tyler Junt. It's just there's a lot of really, really good coaches. I mean, you throw Jordy Nelson's out there with them. There's some guys that are coaching and playing in the West region right now that are just top notch, and it's fun every night to be around those guys, to be a part of it. It's exciting. I know last year, we were at the state tournament. The West kind of took some lumps there in the first round, and you hear, the East is. It ebbs and it flows, man. It's how it is. And hopefully this year, the West is looking prime to be in a good spot moving into that tournament. Obviously I'm a Minot High guy through and through, but you'd be joking yourself if you said I wasn't cheering for West teams when we're playing the East. Obviously I want West teams to do well. It's good for West region hockey. It's good for our brand. I think it's good for the state of North Dakota. So hopefully the West can make some splashes as we go. But like you said, the Wild Wild West, Nikki, there's a lot of teams that are vying for 4 spots to go to state this year. And I think a lot of them are really close to each other.
I don't want to give any locker room material to any other team coming. The coach of Minot High said this, geez, Pete, that's not what we're looking to do. but I bring you on the show, and I like your opinion on this stuff because you've been the biggest fan of Minot High Hockey and WDA hockey, North Dakota High School hockey, that I know with your time growing up at the rink, like I mentioned. And of course, you went on to play at the USHL level, then the Division I level for Dean Blaze at Omaha. I mean, you look at what you were able to do. You obviously have a pretty good insight on players and the caliber. Is Ian Amsbaugh the real deal? And what do you like about Amsbaugh? I asked Mike Peluso the same question, but your thoughts on the Amsbaugh kid? He's obviously got to be one of the favorites to win Mr. Hockey out of the West region this year.
Yeah, I mean, Ian Amsbaugh is an absolute dude. I had the pleasure of being able to coach him on a Bakken Oilers team way back when these kids that are now seniors were, I don't know, maybe seventh graders. He does everything well. I think he's very well-rounded. Sometimes I think he's exhausted. He plays a lot of minutes. I think sometimes you see that every now and then. Also, teams are keying on him. I mean, he's been the leading scorer, a leading scorer in the state for a long time, but he's such a well-rounded player. I have so much respect for him. He's a great kid, always a smile on his face. I love seeing him when we go up to Botany or he comes here. He has a conversation with me. He's just a good kid. Again, you root for those kids. Obviously, when Minot's playing Botno, I want them to have 0-0 because that's who I coach for. But at the end of the day, like I want that kid to move on and play hockey if that's what he wants. If he doesn't, he wants to move on and go to school. I wish him luck in whatever he does. He's just a good kid, and he's fun to be around. And look for him to have another big year. I mean, I think that Botno hockey team. He's got some pieces around him. The kid's coming back. Like they're going to be a dangerous hockey team.
I predicted them to be one of the four that makes it to the state high school hockey tournament. With the goaltending that they have this year at Olsen up there, the netminder for Botno, who in my mind at the end of last year really kind of popped out of nowhere and was like, holy cow, this kid can play and he's the real deal. Is it far-fetched to think that Botno could be one of the four that we see at the Ralph at the end of the year? Yeah, I mean, I think kind of like I said earlier, and you said, the Wild Wild West, there's going to be, I think almost going into that WDA tournament that it doesn't matter if you're the 1 or the 8 or you're the 4 or the 5. I think anybody's going to have a chance because the top ends on each team are really good. And if, a goalie happens to get really hot, as we saw, I mean, even Botno last year in the WDA tournament, their goalie got hot. And, it's just, I think at the end of the day, there's going to be a lot of teams vying for those 4 spots to get to the state tournament. And it's going to be a fun WDA tournament. One of those teams, Jamestown, coached by Matt Stockert, 15th season for Stockert last year. He enters year number 16, the former Mr. Hockey in North Dakota, and he's got a pair up front, or more than a pair. He's got Nenow, Thompson, and Nelson that had 54 points, 49 and 47 respectively. This Nenow kid that comes into the 2021 season here now as a sophomore with 54 points, he's going to be up for a scoring race and a scoring title, it looks like, coming out of Jamestown. Your thoughts on this Nenow kid. We saw him at the state high school hockey tournament last year. They beat Minot High for a 5th place trophy. What do you like about him? Yeah, just talk about a dude, Nick. I mean, the kid's he moves well without the puck. He moves well with the puck. He's shifty. He's got a good shot. Hockey IQ's through the roof. Again, just another kid. You get excited when he gets on the ice. You're like, oh, smokes! Like something can happen here. Like, it's just he's exciting to watch. I expect him to be, one of the top players in the state. Not only this year but moving forward. I believe he's only a sophomore this year. So unfortunate as a Minot High coach, we got to deal with him for some more years moving forward here. Definitely projecting right now as a next level kid, and just. Like I said, every time he gets on the ice, he does something exciting, and it's fun to watch. One team that Mike Peluso and I really didn't dive too far into is the Williston Coyotes. We talked about Tyler Junt and his coaching abilities after going on to a great high school career and after as a hockey player for Tyler Junt. Did he talk about that staff over there? But this is a Coyotes team that last year went 6-10 in the WDA. They've got goaltending back, and they've got pretty much their whole lineup back from last year of a 6-10 team. Are you concerned about how good Williston might be this year? Yeah. You got it there in front of you. I can't think of his name right now. The top defenseman. Ekblad. Yes. I just looked at it. Like that kid's the real deal too. He might be top 2-3 in the state at the defense. The kid's really good. He's a tall,
plays a heavy hockey game, which I like to see. He can move. Like I said, with that coaching staff he got out there, Junt and Jordy Nelson and Bratling's back helping him. Like, there's a lot of wealth of knowledge there. A lot of Division I hockey games played. A lot of high school hockey in North Dakota games played. And they didn't lose much. That's another team that's going to be. They're going to be good. They're going to be vying for those 4 spots to go to state. And again, just they got some exciting kids on that team. And again, it's fun to. Like I said, Minot High through and through, but it's fun to be a hockey person and be able to see these top talents night in and night out when you go to, whether it's Mandan, Jamestown, Williston, Botno, wherever you're going, it's Dickinson, there's top end talent there, and it's fun to see.
Final thing for you, Troy Olsen, in his 16th year as well, ironically enough, started the same year Stockert did as the head coach position. This is a Century team that a lot of people think is going to win the West Region this year. A lot of people have Minot High dubbed to win the West Region this year. It's going to be a dogfight. And by the way, I asked Mike Peluso, is Jamestown able to be a team that could win the WDA crown? Bismarck High, I don't care what anyone says. I was laughing the other day talking about the Demons, and somebody said, you don't have them predicted to go to state. I said, I'm the biggest closet Bismarck Demon fan you'll ever meet. With what they have brought to the West Region has made high school hockey so much better as a whole for the whole state of North Dakota. Now those Minot High, Bismarck High matchups, there's some nights there where that's what we live for. That's what we talk about. I don't know that the Demons are going to be the team to beat this year, but I think the Patriots might be. Touch on Century just a little bit, and Colton Schulte just real quick. 37 points for him last year. And team that loses Connor Hansen, the player of the year for the WDA on the back end, and a defenseman that was a next level guy in my mind. Touch on Century just a little bit. They're going to be really deep again this year.
Well, when it comes to Troy Olsen, I mean, that's kind of the end of the story there. Oli is so analytical based. He's so next level coaching. He does such a good job of him and his staff of, being prepared for whoever they're playing, whether, at the beginning of the year, I know they haven't had this for a while, but even if they're taking some lumps by the end of the year, they're always there because they do such a good job. Obviously losing Connor Hansen, that kid is otherworld. He was an unbelievable player. Hated and loved going against him because, again, it was good hockey, but you knew it was going to be really, really good hockey. He was going to be hard to get by. He was going to be a handful for you. Century just reloads, right? They get better every year. But you know what? I think you look around the WDA and a lot of teams do that. Bismarck High's they're gonna find, that they lost some kids. They're gonna find some kids that are gonna fill in and do great for them. Jamestown obviously has all those kids back. They're going to be good. Williston has kids back. Dickey, Hazen, Botno, Minot, it's a reloaded and ready to go West Region this year. And I think it's going to be exciting. And I'm just glad I get to be along for the ride for it.
I feel like just hitting the switch and flipping on Motley Crue. Let's go right now. It's showtime. Looking forward to it. Coach, we appreciate you. Final thoughts here? Anything else you want to add before we let you get back to what you're doing? And we sure appreciate you again here today.
No, just thanks for doing this, Nick. I don't think, a lot of people might not realize it at the time, but this is growing the brand of West Region hockey. It's growing the brand of our kids. And I really appreciate it. I know other people do too. So not to toot your horn or anything, but thank you. This is good for people. It helps get kids' names out there. And I just, especially this year in a pandemic when we're not going to be able to have a lot of people there, I really appreciate what PSP is doing, not only for hockey, but for all sports. So keep doing it. And we love it. And thanks for having me on.
Sure. Appreciate you, man. That's our mission through and through, to promote our local athletes. And we're going to do our best to do that coming up starting next Monday or Tuesday night up at the Lumber Dome. Tuesday, Thursday, Saturday for the old Minot High boys. Here we go. We will see you next week. Thanks again, Jordan.
Yep, thanks.
The 30-inch Galactic Pizza is out of this world. There's nothing like it anywhere else in Minot. Too much to handle? Try one of our famous large specialty pizzas like the Blue Buffalo. Get the best pizza in Minot and play some laser tag at Planet Pizza, South Broadway, Minot. Another edition of Ice Time, and a good one.
as we get geared up and ready for high school hockey coming up next week. Tuesday, Minot High's at Botno at the Lumberdome to take on the Botno Rugby Braves. You can find the broadcast on the PSP Network. We'll have live coverage for you. Hope you join us next Tuesday night as we roll out the season for Minot High, the defending WDA regular season champs from last year. Botno, a team that I have picked to go to the state high school hockey tournament this year. Think we're going to be in store for a good one next Tuesday night. Hope you join us then for the broadcast. Big thank you again to Brandon Schmitt for stopping by. Big thank you to Jordan Willert for coming by. Always great talking to those hockey minds and gentlemen that I have a lot of respect for inside the game across the state of North Dakota and across the hockey world. Doesn't matter where they're from. Those two guys just happen to be from the Magic City. Big thanks to them for stopping by. Big thanks to our sponsors that bring you Ice Time each and every week. And thank you to the fans for continuing to be involved in the hockey program and Ice Time with yours truly, Nick Hulberg. Until next Tuesday night, hope you're ready for some high school hockey. When we return to the air, we'll see you then. If we don't see you, we'll see you for another edition of Ice Time next week. It's Nick Hulberg signing off. God bless.